Let's start with Ashura. How did the story begin? Was al-Hussein just sitting peacefully when letters from strangers suddenly arrived?
No, that narrative is taken entirely out of context. The story does not start with letters reaching Imam al-Hussein. Whoever tries to picture it that way wants to trivialize the movement. The story began with Muawiyah designating his son Yazid. We have to go back to when Imam Ali was martyred. Afterward, preparations were made for a major battle between Imam al-Hassan and Muawiyah, which ended in a peace treaty. No massive clash occurred, only minor skirmishes, and it concluded with a treaty that stopped the fighting, making Muawiyah the king of the Muslims. This peace treaty contained between 10 to 20 clauses. One clause specified that Muawiyah could not appoint his son after him. There are differing historical accounts regarding what would happen after Muawiyah. Some say it should return to al-Hassan, and if he passed, to al-Hussein. Others say it should be left to a consultative council, shura, among Muslims. The certain point is that Muawiyah violated this clause, along with all other clauses. 439. Violation of the treaty clauses.
The Sunni perspective presented by Sheikh Belkacem al-Jazmi says Muawiyah didn't have bad intentions initially, but those around him convinced him to appoint Yazid late in his rule. What is the truth?
It wasn't just about Yazid. One clause stipulated that he must not insult Ali. Muawiyah went back on this and institutionalized the cursing of Ali bin Abi Talib from the pulpits. Today, when a regular Muslim attends Friday prayers, the imam usually concludes the sermon with the Quranic verse, "Indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct." In the past, under Muawiyah, the sermon ended with the cursing of Ali. This practice continued for a long time.
Why didn't al-Hassan and al-Hussein act at that time?
They did act, and they were the ones who put it in the treaty. Another clause violated was the pledge not to persecute the followers, Shia, of Ali. Muawiyah killed major figures among Ali's companions, such as Hujr ibn Adi al-Kindi, who is buried in the land of Sham. Muawiyah violated the treaty by cursing Ali, killing his followers, and finally, by appointing his son Yazid. Where can viewers find records of Muawiyah cursing Imam Ali? It is mentioned in Sahih Muslim and across history books. It's a widely known historical fact. Toward the end of his life, Muawiyah began pushing people to pledge allegiance to Yazid.
Did Muawiyah do this because of old age and illness, or was it his intention all along?
Ultimately, he broke the covenant and will be questioned before God. When Muawiyah died, Imam al-Hussein was summoned to the governor's headquarters in Medina. He was informed of Muawiyah's death, and told that he must pledge allegiance to Yazid. The governor of Medina and Marwan bin al-Hakam were there, and Marwan encouraged violence, advising the governor to force al-Hussein or execute him if he refused.
Sheikh Majrubi mentioned that many Sahaba refused Yazid because he wasn't a righteous person.
Exactly. That is why al-Hussein raised his voice and made his famous statement. "We are the household of prophethood, and Yazid is a man who drinks wine, openly commits sins, and murders innocent souls." Yazid was a debauched, corrupt individual who spent his time drinking, gambling, and playing with his pet monkey, Abu Kubais. When the monkey died, he forced the state to hold a massive funeral for it. This shows a deep form of madness. Such behavior, along with his character, disqualified him from leading. Yazid ruled for only 3 years, and each year featured a major atrocity. Year 1, he slaughtered al-Hussein, the household of the Prophet, and took the women of the household captive. Year 2, he instigated the Battle of al-Hira, allowing his army to pillage Medina for 3 days, killing countless Sahaba and Tabi'an, and violating the honor of women. He forced the people to pledge allegiance as absolute slaves to him. Year 3, he besieged Mecca and struck the Kaaba with catapults, causing it to burn and collapse.
Sheikh Majid rejects this narrative and says Yazid never attacked the Kaaba. Can you give us the historical context?
Al-Hussein was killed in 61 AH. The Battle of al-Hira happened in 62 AH, and the siege of Mecca happened in 63 AH. The Umayyad military commander was Muslim ibn Uqba, nicknamed Musrif due to his bloodthirstiness, succeeded by Hussain ibn Numair. They attacked the Kaaba because the head of the opposition at the time, Abdullah ibn al-Zubair, took refuge inside the sanctuary. News of Yazid's death arrived while the Kaaba was being struck by catapults.
How did Yazid die?
Nobody knows the exact details, but the most famous account is that he went out hunting while Mecca was under siege. His horse got startled by an animal, bolted, and Yazid fell off. His foot remained trapped in the stirrup, and the horse dragged him across the ground until his body was torn to pieces. This was the end of a tyrant. In my view, Yazid wasn't truly a Muslim. When the captive family of the Prophet was brought to him, he quoted pre-Islamic poetry wishing his pagan ancestors killed at the Battle of Badr could see his vengeance against the Prophet's family. He quoted lines saying, "The Hashemite clan played with power, for no news arrived from God, and no revelation descended." This is why al-Hussein refused to pledge allegiance.
What made Muawiyah see Yazid as qualified? Politically speaking, did Yazid possess the shrewdness to govern?
His actions show he was a failure. His father Muawiyah was politically astute, but Yazid was irresponsible.
People call Muawiyah the uncle of the believers, and one of the scribes of revelation. How can we call him a tyrant?
The Prophet explicitly stated that the caliphate would transform into a biting, oppressive monarchy, mulkadud. He also told Ammar ibn Yasir, "Woe to Ammar, he will be killed by the transgressing group, al-Faya al-Baghiya. He invites them to paradise, and they invite him to the fire." Ammar was killed at the Battle of Siffin while fighting in Ali's army against Muawiyah's army. This is a recorded prophetic miracle in Sahih al-Bukhari that serves as a metric for truth.
There's a theory about the Christianization of Islam during this period. What is the story?
The Levant, Sham, was a heavily Christian environment. The Umayyad court under Muawiyah was deeply integrated with it. His ministers, scribes, poets, and doctors were Christian. Yazid's own mother, Maysun bint Bajdal al-Kalbiya, was a Christian. The mastermind of the Umayyad administration was Sarjun, Sir John, a Christian official whose son was Saint John of Damascus. Saint John was among the first to write theological critiques against Islam, raising doubts about the Prophet. Archaeological evidence and early coins reflect this cultural integration. There is even a prophetic narration stating that Muawiyah would die on a path outside of the Prophet's religion.
But it's widely cited that the Prophet blessed the army that would attack Constantinople, which Yazid led. How do you explain this?
This hadith, narrated by Ahura bint Milhan, is highly problematic and insults the Prophet. The text claims the Prophet used to regularly visit this woman's house in the absence of her husband, eat there, and take naps while she combed or cleared his hair. The language implies scenarios that are inappropriate for the stature of the Messenger of Allah. Sunni scholarship considers it authentic in their collections, but in reality, it contains fabrications introduced later to fabricate religious merits and political legitimacy for figures like Yazid. Yazid never showed genuine bravery or military leadership in history.
Let's return to al-Hussein. Didn't he receive letters prompting his move?
Not initially. When the governor attempted to force a pledge of allegiance, al-Hussein sensed immediate danger and left Medina for Mecca under the cover of night. He left out of fear for his life, because the command from Yazid was clear: force the pledge or execute him. The letters only started arriving once he reached Mecca. When Muslims learned that al-Hussein openly opposed Yazid, groups began writing to him to express support. The vast majority of these letters came from Iraq, specifically the city of Kufa. Prominent figures wrote to him saying, "Come to us, for the fruits are ripe and you have an army ready for you." Al-Hussein did not head straight to Iraq. He first dispatched his cousin, Muslim ibn Aqil, as his emissary to Kufa. Muslim arrived and found thousands of people ready to support al-Hussein. Seeing the situation stable, Muslim wrote back to al-Hussein advising him to come.
Al-Hussein left Mecca right before the Hajj pilgrimage. Why?
He left on the day of Tarwiyah, 8th of Dhu al-Hijjah. He chose to forego the pilgrimage and head to Iraq to protect the sanctity of the Kaaba. A letter had been sent from the Umayyad authority in Sham instructing agents to kill al-Hussein, even if he was clinging to the curtains of the Kaaba. Al-Hussein did not want the sacred sanctuary to become a place where blood was spilled. Abdullah ibn al-Zubair later made the mistake of taking refuge there, which led to the desecration of the Kaaba. Furthermore, al-Hussein wanted to convey a deep theological message. Hajj is a journey of pure monotheism, Tawhid, where people declare Labbaik, at your service, O Allah, you have no partner. Al-Hussein saw millions of people performing these rituals while simultaneously accepting subjugation under a tyrant like Yazid, pledging allegiance to him as literal slaves. This is hypocritical. True worship means breaking free from worldly tyrants. He chose to leave precisely as the rituals began to shock the consciousness of the nation, and show that their rituals were empty without standing up for justice. Yazid, acting on the advice of his Christian advisor Sarjun, appointed Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad to crush the movement in Kufa. Ibn Ziyad was a brutal individual. He entered Kufa, systematically dismantled the network, captured Muslim ibn Aqil, executed him, and threw his body from the roof of the government palace before dragging it through the streets to terrorize the populace. When news reached al-Hussein that his emissary was killed and that the leadership in Kufa was either executed, imprisoned, like al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, or terrified, some advised him to turn back. But al-Hussein felt committed to his promise to those waiting and those who had already died for his cause, so he pressed on. As al-Hussein approached Iraq, his companion pool had shrunk to his immediate family and a dedicated group of companions. The famous poet al-Farazdak met him and warned him. The hearts of the people are with you, but their swords are against you. Due to Umayyad terror and financial bribes, Ibn Ziyad blocked all exits and entrances to Kufa, completely cutting off any remaining supporters from reaching the imam. He sent a military vanguard led by Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi to intercept al-Hussein and prevent him from entering Kufa or returning to Medina. Hur was a noble soldier at heart. He respected the Prophet's family. He told al-Hussein, I am ordered to block you, but I cannot let you enter Kufa or return to Medina. Choose a compromise path that does either. A local desert guide named al-Tarima then guided al-Hussein along an alternate route. During the journey, a metaphysical event occurred. Al-Hussein's horse suddenly stopped and refused to move forward, even when he switched to other mounts. He asked his companions for the name of the land. They told him it was called Nainawa, also known as Al-Akr or Al-Taf. Finally, someone mentioned it was called Karbala. Upon hearing this, al-Hussein said, Karban wa bala, grief and affliction. Dismount here, for this is the halting place of our caravan. This links directly to prophetic narrations. When al-Hussein was a newborn, the Prophet wept and told Fatima that the angel Gabriel had informed him that this child would be slaughtered in a land called Karbala. Al-Hussein arrived there on the 2nd or 3rd of Dhu al-Hijjah, and by the 9th day, the massive Umayyad army had completely surrounded his small camp.
Al-Hussein knew from the beginning he was facing a massive army. He essentially walked into his own death. But why did he bring the women and children with him to certain tragedy?
Al-Hussein openly declared before leaving Mecca, Death is written for the sons of Adam. I am eager to meet my ancestors. It is as if I see my limbs being torn apart by the wolves of the desert between al-Nawawis and Karbala. He knew he was going to be martyred. Think of a soldier defending his homeland against an enemy with advanced weapons. He knows he might die, but it is his duty to stand his ground. Al-Hussein saw that the existential core of Islam was under threat and that the moral conscience of the Muslim nation had died. When a body is clinically dead, you revive it with an electric shock. Al-Hussein's blood, and the blood of his family, was that necessary shock to revive the dead conscience of the community. His martyrdom triggered 6 or 7 subsequent revolutions that eventually brought down the Umayyad dynasty. As for the women and children, they played an indispensable role. If al-Hussein had been killed alone in the deep desert, the Umayyads would have completely buried the truth, claiming he died of natural causes or a sudden illness. The women and children acted as the vital informational team. They survived the massacre, carried the narrative, and recounted the exact details of what transpired at Karbala to the rest of the world.
Was there any respect for the ethics of war during the battle?
Absolutely not. The Umayyad army cut off the water supply to al-Husayn's camp 3 days before the battle started, leaving everyone, including children, severely parched. When al-Husayn stopped to perform the midday prayer, Zuhr, they did not pause the fighting. Instead, they rained arrows and stones down upon them mid-prayer, forcing companions to stand as human shields to protect him. When al-Husayn was left entirely alone at the end, he fought valiantly. The Umayyad commanders realized that attacking him one-on-one was failing because of his unmatched courage. So, their commander ordered the army to encircle him completely, some attacking with swords, others with spears, arrows, and stones all at once. Al-Husayn gave multiple speeches beforehand, asking them, "Look at me, trace my lineage. Is it permissible for you to shed the blood of your prophet's grandson? Did I introduce an innovation into your religion?" But their only response was weapons. They cast aside all codes of honor, showing a level of cruelty that even the pre-Islamic pagans of Quraysh would have rejected. This reflected a long lineage of hostility from the Umayyad clan, dating back to when Yazid's grandmother, Hind bint Ubah, mutilated the body of the Prophet's uncle Hamza at the Battle of Uhud.